Good morning. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the stream. I am Ren. I am a technical designer at UX is Fine. Almost forgot my intro. And today we're going to be creating the FAB library that I have in UMG so that I can randomly pick assets from it for game jams. So the idea is that I can shuffle them and select a couple of them and then challenge myself to make a game out of completely random assets. And I have about 1,700 assets from all the free stuff that's been around, all the bundles that you get from Humble Bundle. So anyway, let's jump over to the scene here. Let's take a look at a couple of the items. So we've got this. We've got a image, title, creator, and we have, a bunch of assets. So we want to draw this in UMG. I've gone ahead and got all of the data, so you can do that yourself for your library if you want to do that, or if you have your own data. Let's say you have a set of data, and in fact, I'll quickly. So what we do is we download this as a CSV. So let's just do that first. So now I have. I'm just going to delete this. We now have a CSV. Just double check I'm actually talking to the microphone right now. Yes, I am. Cool. So we have a CSV. It looks like this. It's a bunch of just like dead data, right? It doesn't do anything on its own. So let's figure out how we get that into UMG. So first off, and in fact, we're not doing this for 2 hours. We're doing this for 1 hour. So I'm just going to get rid of the timer. We've got 1 hour. Let's go. So first, I'm just going to make a new folder. And we'll just call this, FAB Library, I guess. And the first thing that we need to do is create a structure to represent the same data that we have from our CSV. So we'll just call this FAB asset. And in here, we need a couple of variables, right? We need the name, the creator, and the link. So we'll have name, link. We'll have creator, and we'll have image, I think I called it. Let's just double check what format our CSV is in. So it's name, link, creator, image. And they're all strings in this case. So they're all coming in as a string. And we create a data asset from this. So if we go into miscellaneous, not a data asset, sorry, a data table. So we go fab asset here. So dt underscore fab assets. And now what I can do is I can re-import, and I just pick that item from my downloads folder. So we have this, we open this, and now we get all that data. One thing to be aware of is my first row is actually just the index, which comes in as the row name. And then I have my name, etc. Because some of these names are actually duplicated in the FAB library for some reason. They're not always unique. So let's move on to the next bit, which will be saving this and then drawing it into a widget. So let's create a new user widget. Let's go for an activatable common widget here. So I'll just do widget underscore asset list. I'm going to duplicate this. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm going to make a new widget again. This is how I'm going to do a button this time. So button base. So widget underscore fab, or just call it asset item. Should probably keep the fab prefixing going. So we'll do fab asset list and fab asset item. So let's just create the representation of our item first. Okay, so I need to actually look at the item again. So we have essentially a vertical box with an image inside, a text, and two texts. So let's get that started. Well, actually, before we even do that, we need a common button style. So go to create a new asset here, common button style. Call this CBS underscore, I don't know, fab asset. And I actually don't want a visual style for this. I'm going to control it through the hover states. So I'm just going to set it to a single brush that's hidden. Hide that. Go to our button. We'll have a style. We'll just call it FAB asset. So now we do have an element in here, but we can't see it because it's hidden. Let's create an overlay. Let's go custom size. I actually checked the size of this earlier, so it's something like 300 width by like 240 height or something like that. Or 230 height, maybe it was. I don't know, we'll figure it out. One thing that we need is a border for the black color. So if we look at this, it's an image on top of some kind of shape. So I'm going to have a border in the background that is that slightly light color. So I'll throw that in. Let's just go for a sort of grayish color. And in our brush, we can say that we're drawing this as a rounded box. We can do this as a fixed height. Let's try 20, not 210. Let's try 20. It's maybe not rounded enough, so we'll try 40. Maybe too much. Okay, so we'll go with that. Inside this border, we want a vertical box. And this is where we hold all of our content. So first off, let's create a clamped sort of size box for this, who has some sort of height. We'll go down to about here. And this will have its own border, which will be, actually no, it'll have an image, I think. We'll have an image. This will be our main image. So image, let's call it image asset for the asset that we're drawing. And then we're going to maybe round this as well. Let's go rounded. Let's grab the same outline settings. Paste those in. So it should fit perfectly in there, but it is not. So there's some padding going on somewhere. You see this padding here, we'll just get rid of that. So now it lines up nicely with the asset. So that's lovely. And then let's add in our two text boxes. So in our vertical box, we have one text block. Let's go size 12. We can keep it bold. Let's go padding maybe 5 from the top. I need two text blocks. Padding from the bottom, let's just go 0. It's actually the text is actually too big. So maybe we'll go 10 units. And this second block we can see in the design, it's not bold and it's slightly grayer. So let's just set that up. So we'll go regular and we'll just gray this down a bit. And I'm actually getting close to the borders here. So I want to change a couple of the paddings. So that'll do, I think. We'll stick with that. Just make sure that we name these. So this is the name, and this one is the creator. Make these variables so that we can edit them. Okay, so that's all. That's our item. And so for a list view, the way that a list view works is you go into the class settings, and you have an implemented interface here, and you have user list entry. So if we now go event list, event item, it might be the other event set. Yeah, it might be the other interface. There are two interfaces. So let's get rid of this and just do item list or list view. Implemented interfaces, list, user object list view entry. Let's try that. On list view item set. And so what the list view does is it only creates an amount of widgets that are necessary to represent your entire array of data. So when we've got like absolutely tons of data in here, we don't need to draw every single element, and we'll actually do a quick test where we might do that and show the difference between the list view and just generically drawing the whole thing. But essentially, once we get this, we actually need an item. Before we get into what the item is, let's go and set up our list view here. So let's get an overlay for our rear panel, and we'll get a border that fills the space, and we'll make this really dark. So somewhere down here. And we'll stick a list view inside here. So we get a common list view, drop it in. Let's make this size here. So you'll see it says no entry widget class, and that's what we just set up with the interface, allows that widget to now be selected. And you can see it starts populating straight away in here. So I don't like the layout. So we actually want to go, actually, I think we don't want a list view. I think we want a tile view, common tile view. So same deal, and you can do either or. You can do a list view, horizontal, vertical, or you can do one of these tile views. And so I said earlier that the sizing was around 300, or it was around 230 height by around 300 units. So let's compile that. Now you have this. I guess I just want to fill. Or maybe we'll do width. We'll just do fill. I don't know which one's going to be best for this. But now we have a bunch of entries. They don't have any padding. So let's make sure that there is some horizontal spacing. Horizontal and vertical spacing. Okay, so now these have some spacing. One thing that we're going to need to do actually is make sure that this has a representation when it's not loaded, because we are going to download those images through the hyperlinks. So we have our data, it has a bunch of hyperlinks in. This will take us to the FAB asset. This will load our image. What we need to do is make sure that we have a state for when this image is not ready. So let's actually wrap this with a scale box to make sure. We'll do scale to fit X. That's not looking so good. Oh, we might need to change this. Let me just see what the actual size of I'm just taking a picture with the snipping tool, and I'm going to go and check out the actual size of that asset. So if I go snipping tool, take a picture of that. So now we have like one of these. I'm just going to open this in the screenshots folder, hover it, and it should tell me the dimensions. So 297 by 167. So it's around 300 by 200. So we have this. It is clipping above and below, which isn't great. So what we'll do is actually align it to the top. What we can do for the bottom two corners actually, so we can just flatten those. And that's actually more like what we see here. It's rounded at the top and then flat at the bottom. And actually our curves are a little bit large, so maybe we'll actually shrink those down. Let's go to our border here. I think we went 15 that time. So that's looking good. We can actually get a little bit more padding in here as well now. So let's just add a little bit of padding there. Maybe sort of from the top. Yeah, we'll do that. Okay. So we're 15 minutes in, we have our little tile created, we have an image. We need to have a representation for when this asset is not loaded. So let's actually maybe copy this, wrap it with a widget switcher, paste a new one. This image is just a throbber background, I suppose. We'll just go into the color here and we'll just give it some brightened color. Actually, it might need to be a border. Might need to be a border because it needs to hold a throbber. So let's get the color on this one and just raise it a little. And then get rid of those two corners again. So now between these two assets, they are similar. We have a border now, and we can put a throbber in here. So let's stick a throbber, circular throbber in there. Whoa, it's really big. Can we bring it to the center? I think because it's all inside the scale box, it's not working great. So let's replace this with child. So now we have this view. So that should be good. We start off with this throbber, and then we're going to switch to our image once it's loaded. Okay, so that's all that stuff. Now we need to get this into an asset that the list view uses. We have our list view showing up here. We have a cool representation of these in their little grid. And yeah, again, the idea is that you can have 16,000 items, but you're actually only drawing sort of the 25 that you need. And as you scroll, you sort of pool and reuse them in the back end, is what these tile views and list views do. So it's just a more optimized way of handling like a lot of assets. Hopefully we'll have time to evidence how that works. So what we need to do in order to actually draw these is we'll create a function draw assets, and we'll just do this on construction. We can get the data table rows, get data table row names from the FAB assets. And for each of those, we can get the data table row again from the FAB assets. And now we have that struct that we made earlier. What we're going to do is plug this into an item that goes into our list view, or into our common tile view in this case. So you call add item. It wants to take an item. It's an object reference. We don't actually have an object right now. But what you do is you can construct an object. And so we'll have 1,600 default sort of objects sitting around doing what they do. Each one just holds this struct essentially. So let's go and make that object class. So blueprints, object, we'll call this, just call it object underscore FAB asset. And inside here, you hold like a really small amount of data. So we'll call this FAB asset, and it's FA underscore FAB asset, or F for struct. It's like an old programming thing. So expose this on spawn. And what that means is in our list where we've constructed that object, if we actually select it, we've got an object for a FAB asset. We can actually just plug that in now. So that's in there. We have all these items represented in our list. And in fact, at this point, we could technically jump over to this asset, which allows me to draw a widget, get a FAB list, and we'll actually have 16,000 assets in here. 16,000, 1,600. And they are like doing the job of being there. So that's cool. Now we just need to hook up all of the data. So once we get this data, we can cast this to our FAB asset object. We can get our FAB asset and break this. And now we have our 4 items. So we have our creator name, our asset name. So set text on here. So this will just be name. And then we'll go create our creator. That'll be this one. And what we can do with this is actually hide the disconnected pins, and that just cleans it up a little bit. Compile this. Let's actually promote this. I don't really want to hold too much memory because there's 1,600. Although there'll only be like 25 of them that are actually drawn. So maybe it's okay to be like a FAB asset. We can save this so that we can reuse it in some cases. I guess I don't really need to save it. I don't like saving memory when I don't need to. Because what I could do instead is I could just convert this potentially to a function. We'll see. We'll see what we're going to do. Anyway, so this should set up the names. So let's hit play. So now we've got all of the names in here. One thing that I didn't do on our FAB, it's an activatable widget, right? But I didn't set this widget to auto-activate. So let's auto-activate this, which means that my mouse should be shown. Should be shown, he says. Auto restore focus. Now please have my mouse. Maybe what we need to do is go in to our event construct, get our player controller, and set the mode to UI only. It doesn't really make sense to me because, oops, we'll just use self. I always thought that common UI was supposed to do that natively. You can also see my mouse is disappearing now, which is a common issue with this common UI. Okay, so now we have our mouse by default, cool. And I should have my mouse all the time now. Okay. So yeah, the names are showing, cool. We've got concrete damage, we've got simple stylized, so we just need to set up the image. So for the image, what I want to do, I don't want to load every time that these appear. I don't want to load again. I want to load one time, and I probably want to store it into the object, right? So we have the object here. So we could have a custom event load, which can break this image here and just download. We can do download image. And we can promote this to a variable texture. That's fine on success. And because this is asynchronous, we'll need to have an event for when it's actually ready. So we'll just say image ready. And we can output a parameter that's the texture here, which I think is a texture 2D dynamic. That just allows us to easily access it when we bind to this. It will just spit out our... In fact, we don't even need to... we should store it as a variable, actually. Let me think about this. So we'll do that. And then what I could say, I need to determine when to load this. So let's say you never scroll to the bottom of the list. You don't want to have loaded those images. So we could load it as it comes into view, I think would be a better option. So if the texture isn't valid, download the texture and return the texture. If the texture is valid, just call image ready. And so now we'll bind this in our item here. So assign image ready. And in the event that we've already loaded our texture, we actually need to call this immediately. We'll get the texture here. Move all this stuff over a little bit to clean it up. And so if this texture is valid, we will get our image asset and we'll set our texture from texture dynamic here. We'll just plug that in. And then we've got our widget switcher to work with as well. So widget switcher set active index. We've got 0 and 1, right? So what we want to do is probably set this to 1, I think. No, it's 0 for the spinner. And then set it to 1 after we've set the image. That should do us. So now we hit play. We never call load. We never call load. So we should load this. And if it's already been loaded, then it should be fine. So we have all our items show up, and as we scroll, you can just about see it's loading, and it is pretty fast to load. And in fact, what we could do is we could put a delay in here, and you can see how if I put like a 0.3 delay in here, what we'll be able to see is it's loading. And we're reusing old widgets in this case. So if we do stat uObjects, I suppose, in this case, we'll see that the most expensive thing is a third-person character mesh that I can't even see. That is Quinn. And it isn't the UI. In fact, the UI probably doesn't even show up on this list. And those objects that we created, stat slate. So we actually have 4 ms on the slate, total slate tick time. That actually usually represents this entire widget here, I found. One of the things that we could do to optimize this a little bit is disable some of the hits. So at the moment, every single one of everything in here is probably hit testable, right? Like all these green boxes are in a hit test grid that's drawn into that UI, and so we actually can just set this all. Like we can set all of this non-hit testable self and children, and that will actually clean up the hit test grid. And one way that you can test that is by pressing Control-Shift-W. It's going to let me. And you get this widget reflector, and now you can hit test widgets, right? So we go back in here, and now you can see that the only hit testable thing is our actual button, which is nice. Technically, our scroll bar does need to be hit testable, so that's fine. This border does not, probably doesn't need to be hit testable. Okay. So my engine crashed because I exited the game whilst I had the widget reflector up and was hovering something, so a null reference exception triggered. But we're almost done with the first sort of part of this, and then the next part will be hopefully showing how bad it is when you just draw them directly into a massive wrap box, for example, just to show the flip side of it. So in our FAB asset here, we added a little delay. We don't really need it. Just hit play again. I didn't save the viewport, so let's go in here and do asset, FAB asset, not item, but list. Okay, so as I scroll down, we'll see these little load bars, but as I scroll back up, it won't have those load bars because the image has already been loaded, stored in memory. One thing that I just spotted, and I'm not sure if I'm going to see it again. Oh, we're getting some sort of bug here. This is interesting. Ah. So, that's interesting. We do have a bug here that we're going to need to fix. We might be triggering loads incorrectly. So we'll take a look at that. But here you can see here how the text actually goes off the screen. So that's not good. So let's fix that as well. So for our name, we can just do left. And this will say, give us the leftmost number of characters. And so we'll just use 12. We'll do the same. We'll do the same for the creator. We'll just use 12 as the base there. So now we should never go. In fact, 12 is probably too few. We can probably get a lot more in there. So we'll go like 40. Jungle pack to 50. Can we stretch it? Cool. We have a little bit of a padding issue that I'm not happy with as well here. So I'm just going to go fix that. I want to maybe reduce this to 5. 6. So this text is now nicely centered. So we don't get any hover states, right? We're missing hover states. So because this is a button, we actually have the ability to just do event hovered and event unhovered. We go grab the color of our border here. Just drop that into our color picker. What we could do, in fact, we need to make this a variable. So we'll call it border main. The border main here is set color. set brush color. We'll get 2 of these. Pick this as our color. So this is on hover. We want to be slightly brighter. And otherwise we just want to be the normal color. So let's make sure that that's working good. Yep, so we have a hover state. That's looking pretty cool. Good. Is it clear enough? It's probably clear enough. Okay, and then we have event click. So we can launch a URL, which will be, if we get our item from our list view object here and cast that again to FAB asset, get the asset data, break that and plug the link in here, can hide all those disconnected pins, plug this in so it's nice and clean. What we now have is an actual working piece. So if I click this, it's going to pop open that asset. And so from here, we can actually make the randomizer. And we'll put some settings at the top that's like how many do we want to keep or shuffle it. We'll draw only those to the UI. Okay. So there was that one bug that I wanted to take a look at. So if I scroll down, it looks good, but then it starts to break down, right? As I move, we've actually got 2 assets here that are the same, but also not the same. So the image has been messed up in the item. So on list object set, bind to image ready. If the image is ready, set the image from the texture. And then we call load. In fact, we don't need to call this twice, because as soon as we call load, it's going to call this, or it's going to load and call it. So let's see if that fixes it. So it doesn't look like we're getting duplicates. Stylized sea animals. You can see that the image is like flicking as it loads. Oh, I had an issue there. Let's just do it really fast. Go back up again. Really pushing it through its paces there. So here you have a stylized mammoth mount, enhanced studio, stylized giraffe. Obviously this is not correct. And then these are switching again. So there's definitely an issue going on this load with this load function, which is unfortunate because it would be the nicest way to do this. And the other way that we could do it is to just tell every item to load its data on initialization. Yeah, not great. Not great. So why else might this happen? I don't want to re-download it if the texture is already valid. I've created a ton of items, and each one should have unique data in here. What might be necessary is just because the speed that I'm doing this, maybe it's worth putting a little delay in here. Event list, entry released, expansion, selection, object set, yeah. Let's see if this... It might just be a race condition, basically, is what I'm wondering. So now, third person shooter multiplayer pack, cool. Scroll down, cartoon grass and plants, cool. Stylized swamp forest. Yeah, so I think there's a little race condition in there somewhere that's not acting very nice. Also, our FAB assets need to be a little bit taller. So for our item here, I'm just going to change the image scale to 230. open this up, size box here. Oh, I guess it'll be 210. What if we do 210 in here? And then in our list view, yeah, you can see they're now clipping. So we can just increase this to 260, compile that, have a little bit more space. Hopefully, yeah, sometimes people, yeah, you can actually see, sometimes people put their text at the bottom, sometimes people put their text at the top. I want to make sure that this reads like correctly, because otherwise I'm clipping stuff, which I'm not exactly happy about. So let's fix that first before we do anything else. This image might actually be larger than I give it credit for. It might actually be all the way to the bottom. To our item here, just do now we're getting this in here, which is good. Yeah, this is better. Right, and it's really clear now. It's actually like probably the right size. We're seeing in some cases though that our image is actually not that big. It's actually coming inside the window. But I guess it's, yeah, some cases, and I'm not happy about that. So what we can do is just increase this by a factor. So we'll just increase it by 1.1. Let's actually draw. We are drawing this at the scale that it's drawn in the other viewport, so it should be fine. Still getting some issues on some of these images aren't as big as they maybe need to be. Got a scale box in here, right? Yeah, scale to the top. As wide as it can be. I do wonder what the size of that image is. Let's go to our data. Let's just grab one of the images and actually find out what size this is. Let's grab a different one. I want to grab one of the ones that has text on it. So this one here, Dynamic Flight by Hammerhead. Let's just try and find that. Here's one. Grab this. So they are not all different sizes, that's for sure. They seem to all be the same size. So they're 640 by 360. 640 by 360. Now, everything fits nicely in the windows, except for this one, apparently. The hover bike. Why is the hover bike strange? Sci-fi hover bike, maybe? The reason the hover bike one is different is because this is actually how it looks as an icon. So that's fine. Funny. It's just people gaming it. So, okay, so we got all this. Click on this. Opens up the Stingray. Sweet. Let's get some randomization in here so that we can start making game jams from it. So we've got 20 minutes left, and we will have some fun with this. So we'll create something that creates... Actually, before we go any further, let's do the other methods. So let's just take another look at our stat slate. We've got 1.6 ms on here, total slate tick time. If we scroll it all the way down, all the way back up again, you can see how it raises whilst it's drawing a few more widgets into the pool, and then it undraws those from the pool. So you can see that increase and decrease. Paint count is 800, elements 224. Let's take a picture of this, and we'll compare this to if we were to have done it by just drawing it directly into a into a wrap box, right? So let's go into our draw assets. We'll actually just duplicate this. Draw assets bad. We'll get these items. We're not going to construct a fab asset this time. This time we'll create a widget. So now we're going to create 1600 widgets essentially. We have our fab asset item. It's got all these properties because it's a common widget. What I can do to speed up this process is just promote this fab asset here to a variable and then expose it. Not field notify, expose on spawn, and then event construct. Do is we shall just copy a bunch of these things up here. So on construct, I suppose we'll set it to 0. We will grab the fab asset. We will load the image. So we're going to load the image for every single one of these. So it's download image. We're essentially going to bottle the the UI because we're going to just load all the images all at once, despite whether we're going to go and actually look at them or not. So we'll actually do that second. And then first we'll do the name. So this is a pretty common, like, quick setup for any kind of, horizontal list of servers or items in a shop, that kind of thing. We have an amount of data. We loop through that data. We draw the data into a list, right? And so let's get our wrap box here and just put that in. I guess we'll just put it into our overlay. Actually, we'll full size, 100 units. Let's I guess so let's just hide that one. And then as long as this wrap box is visible, we can actually add children to it. Add child to the wrap box. This is the child. Let's make sure that that wrap box has some good little padding in here, maybe 5 units. I think that's what we did. Yeah, 5 spacing. So we've got a wrap box now that's just drawing all of the items immediately. Not as good. Let's compile that. These are actually now massive. So let's go into our fab asset and make sure that our size box is width bound. So we'll do 320. And I think our image was like 640 by 360. So 360 divided by 2 will go. Okay, so now we have all these elements. And so now we can take a print. And now we can compare the two, right? So if we go to, in fact, we could set up a button, event, and I'll just say like E input. We'll just use K, and then we'll just flip flop between A and B. We will clear all the children here. So let's clear the children of the rat box and then draw the assets. Be actually quicker to compare the two, I think. So we'll clear the rat box and draw the new assets. And if we do we run this, we need to clear list items and then draw assets bad, so we don't have both. Let's hit play. So nothing really going on there, but we're at 3 ms. So we hit K. That should do something. Hello? K. Okay, so what we need is input game and UI. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So it's not going to let us do the K key. Always lock. Don't hide cursor. Okay, K. Still not working. Interesting. Okay. Well, that's not fun. So let's do this a different way. Custom event, load. And then in our overrides here for button. Yeah, we could do mouse button down, sure. Affecting button is equal to, and I'll just use my thumb mouse button for this. Just do load. Say handled. So this is all just for testing. Just giving ourselves a little educational journey. Just because we can do does not mean we should. Exactly. We can just draw it into a list entirely, or we could draw it into a list view and it will be handled for us. So if I click this button now I should get, please give me data. Click, 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 click. No. Wow, it really doesn't want me to do anything in this widget at all. So I guess what we'll do then is, as we can't get mouse button down inside this widget, which might be the case that we have a non-hit testable background. Might be the issue. No, it's visible. Yeah, so for some reason we're not getting hits, so instead we're just going to have to draw a button. We're just going to have to draw a button. Stick a button in the overlay here. Give it 10 units, stick some text in it. Just call this text test. Okay. Test. Oh, right, yeah. So now I actually need to hook that button up because that would be also very smart. On clicked, do this flip-flop. Alrighty. Okay, test. So we could assume that this is the list view because we don't have much on the bar. But if we hit test and now we draw it with just a massive box, we go up to like 10 ms. We can see that the paint count has gone to like 15,000 or 1,500, sorry. Which is always there now, and it might be because they haven't yet been garbaged, so there's all these items in the background. In fact, if we test again, we might go up to 3,000. No. Numverts 2,900, kill that. Numverts. It does reduce. This is where we can see it the most. Tick widgets 299. No, we're still only ticking. I guess these widgets don't tick. So we're just trying to get an idea of what we're looking out for, really. We've got the slate pre-pass, which I think is like setting up paint and hit grids. One thing that we need to do is actually wrap this wrap box. We have to wrap the wrap box with a scroll box. Wrap box can fill. Scroll box, actually wrap box, probably auto. Scroll box, I'm going to say always show the scroll bar. Test. We actually have a scroll bar over the top of our other scroll now. yeah, so this, and you can see it's a lot slower, right? So stat FPS, we're at 60 on this. Now we go up to 120 FPS on the list view version. So cool little lesson there, and that's what I wanted to show today. So I've got like 8 minutes left, which means not much time. I'm going to delete the. Actually, I'm going to keep all this because it's a cool little thing for in the future if we ever wanted to look back at it. I'm just going to collapse the test button so I can't click it anymore. And then we're just going to draw assets normally. And I'm probably just going to collapse this scroll box as well. So now we have our assets at 120 FPS. We're super happy with that. We'll turn stat slate and everything else off. We can click these to open them. That's super cool. Let's get a randomize in. So if we wrap this with a horizontal box, stick this in here. Let's get all our buttons, tell them to be centered. Now we're going to create the randomizer. So randomize. Well, actually cancel that. Okay, so for the randomize, let's hit click here. What we'll do is we will clear all the list items. Let's just make sure that that works. And I need to actually make it visible. So it clears the list items, gets rid of all the slate. Go look at that now. I mean, for some reason it's still high, which I find strange. I wonder if there's like a clear widgets or something that I haven't learned about. Anyway, man, none of my assets in there. I didn't know you had assets. That's well, sorry, man, can't help you with your SEO. What's your FAB handle? We'll come back to that. We'll come back to that. If you let me know the FAB handle, I will have some fun with that. Draw assets here. So in this case, what we're doing is we're giving it all the data rows. So what I can do is say draw assets like this, plug this in here. And here what we'll do instead, and we have like 6 minutes still to go. So collapse to function, randomize assets. You can get this list, promote this to a local variable, L list, shuffle it, and then resize that list. Probably give ourselves a way to control the size of the list as well. What we essentially do is we just draw assets like so, and then it's only going to create an item, for each of the entries that goes in. The size, let's get a text box into our horizontal box here. Go centered, hint text, enter count. And obviously the style is always terrible. We'll enter count there, and then the problem will be that the color will be naff. it'll be pretty crappy when we hover it because it'll be exactly the same color, or it'll be super white. Background image focused. So we'll actually take this tint and we'll put that tint in here. Okay, so King Boars. Let's go take a look. Mana. Oh yeah, I saw this come up the other day actually. Yeah, free assets, dialogue system. I've seen a really cool dialogue system that has like a whole, I don't know if you've done the same thing. I've got a dialogue system that I really like, and I really want to learn how to create these assets as a technical UI designer. There's like, you can make your own graphs. I think it's this one. Yeah, so this one comes with a graph, and it comes with these settings. You can basically do anything with it. You can create objects, they can have scripts, you can run scripts through it, and whenever you do any one of these things, so you can change cameras, you can do anything you can do in Unreal, but you get to hook them up in a sort of a nice fallback loop system, and then they've got like in and out conditions, so you can do things like, if you've never met this guy, this is how the conversation goes. If you've met this guy before, this is how the conversation goes. If you've met this guy 10 times, this is how the conversation goes. If you've got this item, he could start out just immediately being like, oh, cool, you got the key. Sweet. I really like this dialogue system. I'd love to work with it again. And I'd actually love to learn how to create these node-based widgets in Slate. But before we run out of time, we've got 2 minutes left. Let's go here. Let's go count. Let's grab this. Get text. Get text from the text block. Convert it to a string. And then that to a number. And we'll just test that real quick. So 1, randomize. That didn't work. Randomize assets, do this, clear, shuffle, resize, draw assets. Okay, let's try it one more time. 2. This came out as 2. It has a draw size of 2. And this function is not hooked up, so it will never do anything. Got 2 assets. It gave me the modular Victorian house and the tropical plants. So that's the game that we're making. So let's say that we take 5 assets. We're going to do a car driving game in the shooter game template, mixed with Dungeon Architect and some Fluid Ninja VFX tools and some Mayan. I don't know what game we're going to make with that, but that's the game that we're going to have to make now. And then because you can enter nothing in this text block and you hit randomize, what I should do is say, in fact, what does it report? It probably reports -1. No, it reports 0. Okay, so what we do is we say if this is equal to 0, we'll select off of here. If this is equal to 0, just choose 5. Otherwise, if it's not equal to 0, take that number. And so that's just a little protection against not entering randomize. So it just gives us 5. Combat graph. Yeah, I've seen that one. That one looks pretty cool too. Well, thanks for joining us, everyone who came in for this little adventure. So we could say like, give me 1,600 items, please. In fact, what I should probably do is if this is equal to 0, I could just draw the assets. And if it's not, I'll resize it and then draw the assets. I think that would be better because it means I have a way of drawing the full list without guessing 1,600. Because then you'll come out with like items that don't have a row entry. So let's go with that. Randomize, randomize, randomize. This is pretty cool actually, because now it's just randomizing it from the top down. Very cool. Okay, well, that's the end of the track as well. My music's actually stopped, which gives me a hint that we're at the end of the episode. Thanks for joining us. We did a cool thing with common list view. We didn't do too much of the common UI things, like having gamepad working, but gamepad should theoretically work. So I'm using gamepad right now to scroll through this list. So what I'd like to do is maybe come back to this and actually implement the action bar and some other elements to this UI so that you can see a little bit of common UI in there. But that's it for today. I'll be back in a few hours. I've got some meetings this morning. I'll be back in a few hours. That was a nice short one. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one. Thanks very much.